Greetings, Dragon Ball fans, and welcome to Part 7 of this series, What If Vegeta Killed Gohan? In the last part, the gang encountered the wizard clone Babidi and his forces. With the eventual and rather brutal dispatching of Dabura, his petrified victims, Gohan included, found themselves once again back in action. All is not well, though, as Babidi took one look at Gohan's somewhat fragile mind and plucked the strings of his irrational, decades-old shame, rage, and outright hatred. Fortunately, the first thing he saw was the diminutive Shin instead of a certain Namekian. Once the gray-skinned evil Buu has congealed, his other half, the supposed good Buu, becomes incensed and charges in to attack. Goku, Jinbei, and Akujin join the fray, freeing Akumu to head off to help Gohan. However, he finds that talking to his master, either telepathically or verbally, does nothing as Gohan keeps ranting while throwing Shin around, trying to make one incoherent point after another. Not wanting to waste too much time, Akumu pushes his Kaioken as high as he can and charges in, striking the distracted Gohan and knocking him away, as he momentarily drops out of what we all know is the legendary Super Saiyan 2 state. Akumu quickly helps Shin up, and they talk about why Gohan is acting this way as they land near the three recovered but increasingly terrified Son school students. As the fight rages on, it quickly becomes apparent that this new, purely evil Buu is not a weaker portion at all. He is, in fact, much, much stronger. However, he is still struggling somewhat against this moderately diverse group of fighters. There has to be a way out from under this mess, though, doesn't there? Yes, having that weaker but still substantial good Buu attack him head-on is just what evil Buu needs. He leaves an opening, and as good Buu comes in to deliver a massive strike, evil Buu promptly wraps himself completely around good Buu, absorbing him. Sensing a massive spike in malicious power, Akumu is forced to abandon Shin to the students, and he teleports back to help fight this newly formed Super Buu. Gohan, meanwhile, has come back around, having been knocked out for a moment by the Kaioken-empowered Namekian's precision strike. Gohan again approaches Shin, who is now guarded by the recovered Videl, Sharpener, and Moki. They look on in fear at their sensei as his hair slips smoothly into that familiar, comfortable Berserker Super Saiyan Grade 4 state. While the rage is clear on his face, there is no longer any pulsing, no lightning, and rather interestingly, to anyone not staring down this particular freight train, there are no longer any waves of energy bathing everything. He steps toward the three now figuratively petrified students, staring past them at the battered Shin. Then he pauses. They all turn to look in the same direction, sensing Jinbei's energy flaring, then fading out. Realizing what has happened, and with practiced efficiency, Gohan yanks himself back under control, and out of the now-dead wizard's remaining influence. He falls to the ground, clutching his head, as the symbol burns and sizzles away from his forehead. When he then senses his other son, Goku's energy, also flare and die out, he collapses, once again unconscious. Akumu appears back on the scene as the newly formed Super Buu is in the process of gobbling down a delicious Jinbei-flavored snack. Akumu, Akujin, and a now enraged Goku attack Buu with everything they have, but Super Buu just smiles at them as he morphs into Boobei? No, maybe Jinbuu. Yeah, that sounds much better. Goku cries out to his brother, and with tears flying, he forms clusters of boomerang-shaped Destructo discs in each hand. He throws them at and through Jinbuu, easily slicing him into smaller and smaller pieces. As Jinbuu reforms again and again, Akujin flies in from behind to catch him off guard, but is caught by an errant, free-floating arm and blasted down into Akumu. They untangle themselves in time to see the young Goku being surrounded by a chunk of pink goo. Destructorangs and energy beams lance out of the surrounding mass and crash into and through everything nearby. But the mush closes in, surrounding and finally consuming the boy. Having recovered from his recent encounter with Majin Gohan, Kibito's aid is firmly rejected by Shin, so he instead tries to heal this once again unconscious man. He is somewhat perplexed, however, when he finds that he can't seem to do anything to heal him. The battered Shin struggles to his feet and tells Kibito that Gohan's injuries are not of the body. Looking at the three students, he touches both Gohan and Kibito, and they disappear to the world of the Kais. Akumu and Akujin are now extra busy fighting Jinkubu? Jinbuku, maybe? Is it the prefix or the suffix that has the most significant component in the fusion, or whatever Buu does? Anyway, despite the appreciable difference in power, they are doing surprisingly well. Having absorbed both boys, Buu's movements are now almost comically predictable to the pair of Namekians. The father and son duo move in perfect sync to attack and distract, with Buu taking ever-increasing amounts of damage, only to regenerate and reform each time. Fortunately, Jinbei's more childish nature seems to have remained dominant over Goku's much more reserved and considered approach to things. Jinbuku is getting super nettled. Gohan awakes on the peaceful world of the Kais, with Shin smiling down at him. The Kai talks quietly to him, and, to his surprise, Gohan finds that he can, and is strangely desperate to talk about things, even to this useless Kai. Instantly suspicious, he sits up and demands to know what Shin has done to him. Is this more control, like that almost intoxicating release from before? Shin explains that he's been trying to heal Gohan's mind, but he hasn't really been able to do much. The immediate peril forgotten, however, Gohan finds that he wants nothing more than to just go to Bulma and talk to her. To really talk to her. He wants to tell her everything before he gets lost again in his own shame and anger. But as he distractedly reaches out, seeking her slight yet well-known presence, Shin interrupts, reminding him that there are slightly more pressing matters at the moment. The Kai then leads Gohan and Kibito off towards a large stone pillar. Back in the mortal realm, Akumu and Akujin are getting thoroughly worn out against Jinbuku's seemingly unending regeneration. After Buu throws them both to the ground, yet again, and with their extended Kaioken use rapidly catching up with them both, Akujin looks over at Akumu. With a slight smile, he says that it's probably about time they had a go too. Enacting something that Piccolo had mentioned about their race, Akujin takes the shocked Akumu's hand and places it on his chest. Before he can object, there is a blinding flash as Akujin initiates their own brand of fusion. Above them, Buu starts laughing, thinking that they blew themselves up rather than let themselves be consumed. But he suddenly finds himself smashing into the ground. Over on the world of the Kais, Gohan, Kibito, and Shin arrive at the stone pillar, and Shin shows them the mighty Z-sword. He tells Gohan that this sword is said to be the key to great power, enough to defeat the likes of Majin Buu. So if Gohan could please try and pull it out, that'd be great. Kibito is quite beyond complaint at this point, as a base form Gohan reaches for the hilt. He struggles with the sword handle for a moment, and while it moves slightly, he can't quite pull it out. He steps back and stretches for a bit, then again takes hold of the sword. There isn't even a flicker of red or gold as the pillar underneath them starts to crack and promptly shatters under his feet. With nothing to stand on anymore, the sudden weight of the sword drags Gohan down to the ground. However, he stops and floats, just above that ground, clearly straining against the weight. Settling down, Gohan wobbles back and forth awkwardly for a bit, finding his new center of mass with this rather massive blade. See, that's a pun, because it's not that big of a blade, at least for an anime, but its apparent mass is, well, massive. After he finds his center and stops wobbling around, with a sheepish grin, Gohan asks Shin to please not tell Bulma about him staggering about like a drunkard. Gohan looks at Kibito, who points to his head and does a small, crazy twirl. Gohan sets to work with the sword, stopping every few minutes to ask Kibito to heal his retorn muscles. It's a shame they didn't stop by Karn's new tower just outside of West City for some senzu. Would be much better than relying on these damned Kais, but whatever works. It is during one of these pauses when Gohan drops the blade, staring off into space. He just felt something. A shift. Akujin is gone, and Akumu has been replaced by something altogether more powerful. Back on Earth, the freshly fused Akumu and Akujin is once again throwing Jinbuku around, trying to wear the monster down while making the Majin ever more frustrated. Why can't he sense this man's movements? Even with Goku and Jinbei's knowledge, this towering Namekian is so goddamned annoying. Or is that Kami-damned? Kai-damned. Seeing that Gohan has lost all interest in this most legendary of weapons, Shin pipes up to ask if they can perhaps test the blade out on things. They quickly work their way up to throwing that nice big block of Kachin at Gohan. When he strikes the block, the sword, of course, shatters. Shin and Kibito proceed to freak out. That was the Z-sword. Gohan isn't nearly as concerned, though, as he can feel that his body has responded well to the few strain, heal, strain cycles that he's been through with Kibito's help. And besides, this is all a bit pointless. That power, whatever Akumu and Akujin did, have they combined themselves somehow? Well, whatever it is, they're more than enough to deal with Buu now. Gohan drops the remains of the sword and reaches out, trying to sense what's going on back in the mortal realm. From out of nowhere, the Elder Kai greets them and thanks them for releasing him from the Z-Sword. After Shin and Kibito recover themselves yet again from this next shocking revelation, they start to explain what's going on. Distractedly, Gohan comments that he thinks the sword training may have had some other benefits, as his base form is at least a little bit stronger now, and any other forms will benefit directly from that. Shin, however, is not sure it will be enough, and so he asks the Kai if there is any truth to the legend surrounding the Z-Sword. Some sort of ultimate power or something. After a moment, the Elder Kai says that there is one thing he can do to help them. He steps close and examines Gohan for a while, but then he pales and almost staggers back. There's just no way he can unleash this damaged man on the universe with that much power. Well, besides, that weird, perverted, no, perfected Kaioken technique he's got hidden away? That should allow him to get at every last scrap of power he has anyway. What in Hiffel's name have you been doing, Shin, to allow such a wretched, broken man to amass so much raw power? Gohan's muttering comment about not a whole lot really is drowned out by the Elder Kai's scolding the youngling for not being able to sense the true extent of this mortal's power. His limits are matched only by his feelings of shame and that oh-so-carefully bottled rage. His tirade is interrupted by Gohan's sudden shout. The merged Akamu and Akujin are gone. They've disappeared too. Did Buu kill them? How? He's not remotely strong enough to have done that. No way they would have made a mistake. Though at a clear advantage, the freshly fused Akumu is getting as frustrated as Buu was a while back. Being from the same body, and roughly the same mind, their acclimation was almost instantaneous. Yet despite all this power they now have, they've been at this for hours, probing for and exploiting one physical or mental weakness after another, desperately searching for a way in. Some way to save the slight presence of Goku and Jinbei that he can sense inside. Finally coming on a solution, Akumu suddenly falters and falls to the ground after being struck by a once again reformed Buu. He struggles to get up, but the Majin descends on him, laughing hysterically as he engulfs the Namekian. Sensing this, and unaware of Akumu's plan, Gohan instant transmits on top of Jinbuku and attacks. He easily overpowers him, forcing him back. With a sad but determined grimace, he beats down mercilessly on the pink being. As Gohan charges up a powerful beam attack, looking to end it all, Shin reaches out and touches his mind. He tells Gohan to look, that Buu hasn't changed. Somehow, he hasn't absorbed them yet. Absorb? What is that little idiot talking about? However, pausing his attack, Gohan reaches out and senses not only the now merged Akumu and Akujin, buried deep somewhere in there, he also senses his sons. Jinbuku is taken aback by Gohan's sudden pause and the aborted attack. Has he worn himself out too? Phew! Guess he's not that powerful after all. A glimmer of Goku's mind tells Buu to be on guard. That Namekian could hide his energy perfectly, and this is Master Gohan. This is my dad. He could probably punch a hole through the planet without disturbing a blade of grass. This juicy opening, however, means more tasty treats for me. Yummy, tasty chocolate. However, he can't seem to hit Gohan with the chocolate beam. The man dodges effortlessly out of the way, moving without moving. He's teleporting. Why don't these kids know how to do that? He'd seen the weaker of the two Namekians do it too, but the technique still eludes him. Give it time. Maybe they just need to digest a bit. Gohan then tells Jinbuku that he doesn't want to hurt the people he's absorbed, who he can feel inside. Jinbuku smiles at this and goes on a fresh offensive. He has still not fully realized that he hasn't evolved with the absorption of the fused Akumu. Gohan taunts Buu while taking and narrowly dodging the Majin's increasingly frantic attacks, until suddenly he starts to shift form, mid-punch. He stops fighting and looks around confused. Then he starts punching himself, reaching inside again and again, ripping chunks off of himself and throwing them away. No, you don't. Stop that, he shouts. Gohan surges up to him with just enough force to push Buu off balance. He retreats while continuing to distractedly dig into himself. Again and again, Gohan slams up in front of Buu, knocking him back, all while careful to dodge these discarded blobs. As the now Jinbu finally starts shifting back to plain old Super Buu, he starts shouting and yelling and blowing out lots of steam again. A rapidly expanding Akumu flies out of a steam vent, dragging sacks containing Goku, Jinbei, and even that other, so-called Good Buu. Super Buu, of course, starts bubbling and twitching, changing again, shrinking into an altogether more sinister and powerful, compact form. The original, the untamable Kid Buu. Will Gohan be able to overcome this new, immensely powerful form of Majin Buu? Without access to the ultimate form, can he summon enough power? Hopefully the so-called perfected Kaioken comes in handy. Find out next time on Dragon Ball, What If Vegeta Killed Gohan?